Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Deck Musings. So yeah, we're up to here now in the standard timeline. This is what's currently in standard in the window of February the 1st, 2008 to May the 1st, 2008. We have Cold Snap, the Time Spiral block, including those time-shifted cards from Time Spiral, which were treated sort of, I believe, as a individual entity, as they had a slightly different set symbol on them, but they were, included as part of the set and included as part of standard. Then we got 10th edition, and then we have both of the mini blocks, both sets from the mini blocks. So for the first mini block, so that would be the Lorwyn mini block, and the second mini block is going to be when we get Shadowmoor added in, and then Eventide after that over the next few weeks, and then of course once we start to get Shards of Alara in, that's when we lose all these other sets, so Cold Snap and the whole of the Time Spiral block. So I suppose what I'm getting at is the fact that there were two mini blocks. There was no sort of mini rotation, if you like, between the two mini blocks. Yeah, just for clarity there. And also this note here, and something I don't know if I've really thought about it or flagged it up, but sets becoming legal on their release date. I'm assuming up till now, in the case of tournament play, so that's this wouldn't include obviously things like pre-releases and when they were having events around the release dates as well, because that used to be a thing. There must have been like a delayed legality there. But like I said, it's not a particular rabbit hole I've gone down, so if anybody feels compelled to comment on that and has experience of how that sort of manifested itself at the time, then yeah, feel free to make a comment or not, as the case may be. So mentioned here in this column in terms of what were the predominant deck types to look out for, what was the meta like. We've got blue-black fairies, green-black elves, Dorian. We looked at a Dorian deck before, and then Revelark. Now, it's interesting because it looks like this list is very much reflective of what was going on around this particular GP, because when we come to look at the actual GP, you can see, we have fairies, we have green-black elves, we have Revelark, and we have Doran the Explorer. So I'm going to go through these probably a little bit, spend a little bit longer here than I normally would do, because it's such a tight bunch of decks, and it's not as if sometimes we'll look at this, or I'll go through it and it's like, okay, particularly what was it during Mirrored in It period, where all of the top 8 was one particular deck, or the reverse of that, where everybody's playing something different. So within the top 8, we've got, what would you say, the 4 different archetypes. Yeah, so we'll have a look, see how different the two Fairies decks are. We're going to look at this one, the winning Fairies deck, this week when we go through down the various rabbit holes. So you can see, Mutavault. We'll also see some cards that came in as a result of Morningtide coming into standard. And interesting again, we've got these cards in here from, say, 10th edition, from the core set. We might see some cards again, interesting utility cards from, because of the fact we've got that interesting time shifted block which pulls in from cards, or you know, from way back. So yeah. Still this really interesting mana base going on, even though we've lost or would it be Ravnica block. And again, some of these are, you know, due to the fact we've got certain lands from the time shifted section of that first block from Time Spiral. Revelark deck does have Haven Rift Watcher in it. Interesting sideboard. Elves. Again, look at the land base. Again, just a sideboard. You see, we've got Urborg kicking around. That's been cropping up in a lot of decks we've been looking at. There's another Revelark deck. Was Wrath in the other one? Oh yeah, there it was. So you can see differences in the makeup there between the two decks. Dawn the Explorer, wow. Another elves deck, and then another Revelark deck. So let's dive into Faeries. So 19 creatures, surprise, surprise, all fairies. And just make sure I've got this on a curve, which I do have. So, yeah, with the creature side of things, we start off with 2-drops. So no 1-drops. So we've got 4 Spellstutter Sprites. 1 in a blue, 1/1, flash and flying. And when it comes into play, counter target spell with converted mana cost X or less, where X is the number of fairies you control. So scaling off the fairies. 4 Pestermites, 2 in a blue, 2/1 with flash and flying. Notice here, quite a number of these have flash on them. And when Pestermite comes into play, you may tap or untap a target permanent. So we've got 2 cards there already with ETB abilities on them, but we're starting off with a 2-drop, and we're going straight to a 3-drop. There's another 3-drop here, 4 copies of Scion of Oona. So again, 2 in the blue. It's a 1/1 this time. Does have flash and flying, but other fairy creatures you control get +1/+1, and other fairies you control have Shroud. So a permanent with Shroud can't be the target of spells or abilities, and that's any spell or ability. So this is before things like Hexproof, which was, you know, asymmetric. This is symmetrical, so have to be really careful there if there's anything that you obviously want to target one of your creatures with. When this is in play, and giving every fairy you control Shroud. Then we've got 4 Mistbind Cliques, 3 and a blue, so already we got a 4-drop. It's a 4/4 with flash and flying, and has champion a fairy. So when it comes into play, you can have to sacrifice it unless you remove another fairy you control from the game. When this leaves play, that card returns to play. And when a fairy is championed with Mistbind Clique, tap all lands target player controls. And then another 4-drop here, because this was a 4-drop. 2 and 2 blue, Sower of Temptation. Doesn't have flash on it, does have flying. It's a 2/2, and when it comes into play, gain control of a target creature as long as Sower of Temptation remains in play. So you can see, you know, the higher cost of these compared to what you might get possibly with a creature. It is due to the fact, you know, these have flying on them, they have flash on them, at least some of them, and also, you know, they have additional abilities as well. So then we've got 4 Bitterblossoms. So far we've seen all the fairies are mono blue, and this is where our black is coming in for our mana base, in terms of, you know, cards that we need black mana to cast. And this is Bitterblossom. So 1 and a black, and it's a tribal enchantment fairy, and at the beginning of your upkeep you lose 1 life and put a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token with flying into play. So that obviously, when this is in play, and of course there are 4 of these, so you know, if you've got multiple copies of these, you're going to be losing multiple life. So this puts a clock on you. Instant wise, we have 4 Nameless Inversions. So 1 and a black. It's got Changeling, so it's every creature type at all times. And target creature gets +3/-3 and loses all creature types until end of turn. So yep, you can use it as removal. In this deck, I don't think there's anything. Well, you do have a 4/4 here, so you could, as long as Scion of Oona wasn't in play, you could target your Mistbind Clique and it would become what, a +3, so that's what, a 7/1. Yeah, a 7/1 if you felt so inclined. Obviously you've got to be in a position for that to be effective, but yeah, that would be an option. You've got 4 Cryptic Commands, so 1 and 3 blue, so pretty heavily invested in blue, and you get to choose 2 on here. So it's 2 out of the 4. Counter target spell, or return target permanent to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures your opponents control, or draw a card. Here's our land base. Looks pretty interesting. So we have 3 Faerie Conclaves, so these come into play tapped. Tap, add blue to your mana pool, but you can convert them from 1 and a blue, or actually they're still a land, so you don't really convert them, but they also become a 2/1 blue fairy creature with flying until the end of turn. We've got 4 Mutavaults in here. So this is new to standard. Tap, add 1 colourless to your mana pool. For a cost of 1, it can become a 2/2 creature with all creature types until the end of turn. It's still a land, so you get interesting interactions with, say, this card, because it's all creature types. 4 River of Tears. You can add blue to your mana pool. If you played a land this turn, add black to your mana pool instead. So interesting dual land. Secluded Glen's in here. So this is one of these where you reveal a certain creature type. In this case, not surprisingly, it's fairies. So you may reveal a fairy from your hand, and if you don't do that, it comes into play tapped. If you do, then it's untapped. 4 basic snowlands in here, and 2 islands, sorry, and then 2 basic snowland swamps, and these are because of the fact that we have Cold Snap in the set. And then we got 4 underground rivers. Tap, add 1 to your mana pool. Tap, add blue or black to your mana pool. Underground river deals 1 damage to you. But you'll notice there's no like basic land, so either it's a non-basic land or it's a snow land in here. And then we've got 4 Ancestral Visions. And it's just reminding you Ancestral Vision is blue because it's got this suspend cost on here. So suspend 4 and a blue. So rather than play this card from your hand, pay blue and remove it from the game with 4 time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter. When you remove the last, play it without paying its mana cost. The target player draws 3 cards. And then our sideboard. We have 4 Deathmarks, courtesy of 10th edition. So those will destroy a green or white creature at sorcery speed for a single black. Actually 3 Thoughtseize in here, so hand disruption for a single black. Target player reveals his or her hand, uses a non-land card from it. That player discards that card and you lose 2 life. So that's another card in here where you're losing, there's an additional sort of cost incurred of losing life. So another one that's going to, not help you out with that clock. Familiar's Ruse, 2 blue, as an additional cost to play Familiar's Ruse. Return a creature you control to its owner's hand. Counter target spell. So you just got to bounce a creature back. We've got 4 Bottle Gnomes. So this is one way of getting life back. You can sack it, and it's a 1/3 for 3. And there's 2 copies of Razormane Masticore. So this is a 5 casting cost creature. It's in 10th edition. And it's a 5/5. It has first strike. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Razormane Masticore unless you discard a card. At the beginning of your draw step, you may have Razormane Masticore deal 3 damage to target creature. So yeah, it's shocking not shocking, what am I saying? Bolting. Yeah, bolting a creature. Yeah, so look, no 1-drops at all. That's right. Yeah, no 1-drops in the main deck. There are 1-drops in the sideboard, but not in the main deck. It's also interesting to note that in terms of, and this is because we're running all those dual lands, I suppose. There's the pip breakdown, so much more blue in the casting cost than black, but because of the presence of so many dual lands, it's a little bit more evenly distributed. Yeah. Right. So here's our Snowlands, courtesy of Cold Snap. Nice artwork. There's the swamp. So what are they? Yeah, around $1 to $2. I don't know whether there's probably some variations, I imagine, with the different colours and mana. Okay, Faerie Conclave. Now, of course, a number of these cards we have seen already because these are popular in many tournament decks, so in previous weeks. So, and again here, something we've looked at. But for those of you that are joining us for the first time, welcome. But you can see here, this is where those cards come from originally. Let's get this by colour order. And you can also see that the artwork's changed. Let's just compare and contrast. So what is it? 10ED I think is the code. What did I do there? No, 10E, that's it. No, it isn't. Okay, what have I done? Oh, I know. Is it not gonna? That's better. Yeah, it's because it's first printing. There we go. Didn't know what I was trying to do. What is that? So a few there have been reprinted since 10th. You can see Dual Deck Commander Anthology. Oh yeah, that one's Speed versus Cunning. And Elves versus Inventors. This one hasn't. Spawning Pool. I like the artwork on there. Secluded Glen. Another cycle of these. Interestingly, Ancient Amphitheatre is the only one that's been reprinted, but the artwork hasn't changed at all there. Yeah, the reason why there's two taggings on here is they also include some additional stuff here in this one, if I can show you, like I did last week when I think I did this. Yeah, so these were the ones that came in as a result of Morningtide. So probably a bit easier to see if I do it by release date in Ascending. There you go. Although, so there's these ones, and they're red, white, black, red, black, green, blue, black, and then white, blue, and then Morningtide. You can see the additional ones here. So this one cares about tree folks, elementals, Kithkin, whereas these were giants, goblins, elves, fairies, and what's this, merfolk here. And if we do them by colour, might be a bit easy to see as well how the jewels break down. So this is allied, so is this, as is this. So you can see it here. Now what's interesting is these three, if you look at the colour pie, on the colour pie, so white, blue, black, red, green, and then back to white again in a circle. So these two are enemy colours, so black, green, and red, white. Murmuring Bosk, it's not quite so easy to see, but this is actually a 3-colour one. So there's green up here, white, black down here. And this is multicolour, but only to play elementals. So yeah, Morningtide adds in sort of a monocoloured one, a tricolour one, and then a 5-colour. This one would be, so white, green, black. That makes it, that's a wedge, isn't it? I think. Yeah, that's wedge. Underground River, yeah. Over this series we've seen this numerous times. Part of a cycle of Painlands. And if you're curious about the first printings, then there we go. Ice Age, where the allied ones appeared, and then Apocalypse for the enemy ones, and all 10 were reprinted in 10th edition. We've got River of Tears, which is an interesting one. So yeah, it's sort of a, let me just try and bring this up to show you. Again, if you haven't seen this, I think most of these we saw last week and previous weeks. So yeah, so you'll notice these are all in that special future sight, future shifted frame, And again, with these ones, let's just look at the colours. But yeah, the other thing, that's what I was trying to remember, is I did know that they were quite different from one another, that the templating's interesting. So these are a cycle, but when you look at them, how, you know, the rules text and the templating, so that's quite different. So this one's like a sort of conditional land, in that, you know, in order to play that ability, you have to control an island to access white, and to access blue you have to control the plains, but you can just tap it for colourless mana. This one, which was the one we're concerned with in terms of the deck, you can see it's conditioned on playing a land. This one's an interesting filter land, and I think I'm right, these cropped up in the next blocks, this idea of taking something of either one colour and filtering it and expanding it to, you know, the various 2 colour combinations you can have from those colours. Plus this also generates colourless mana as well. This one's got colourless mana, and then you can tap for red or green and each opponent gains life, and then finally Horizon Canopy, which I think is one we've seen before in other decks. So you pay 1 life to add green or white to your mana pool, and you can sack it to draw a card, or you have to pay 1 mana of any colour. So yeah, these have always fascinated me. Let me just have a look here, because particularly yeah, here we go. So straight away this was in Shadowmoor, and then yeah, the Shadowmoor filter lands. There we go. No doubt when we get to Shadowmoor they will actually crop up. So Mutavault, 2/2 creature. It's been reprinted in a set. Well, it turned up in Magic 2014. I remember it turning up in this, and I can't remember if I did open one or not. And then it's in this Commander deck. In terms of actual sets, yeah, this is the only other set here. Yeah, becomes a changeling. I wonder how many lands. Oh, there you go. There's the answer. Just 2. That's just anything becoming a changeling tagged at all, regardless of what it is. And we've looked at creature lands numerous times. Similar to Misha's Factory, in the respect of the creature, you know, the fact it's a 2/2 rather than you know, the Mutavault is all creature types, whereas the Misha's Factory becomes a assembly worker artifact creature, but it's a 2/2. So let's get on to some non-lands. Sower of Temptation. Oh, that was reprinted in Battle Bond and Wilds of Eldraine Commander, and was a secret lair drop. Okay, let's have a look. Wow. Oh, good old control magic with body. Yeah, so when Sower of Temptation comes into play, gain control of a target creature as long as Sower of Temptation remains in play. Yeah, I didn't even spot that. There we go. So yeah, it's control magic. Theft of creature, and there's tons of cards in Magic which do this. I mean, whenever I think of creature theft, where I tend to think of it in the 2 main colours, and obviously it goes outside of that, as you can see here, is blue and red, and I always associate it blue with being, often it's an enchantment, or it's done in a way in which the theft is for an extended period of time until the thing doing the enchanting gets blown up somehow. but with red often it's for a finite period of time. It's not always the case, but yeah, that's the way I tend to think of it. And of course with this they could be tagged up slightly different. What I'm thinking of in red might be called something a little bit different, because I'm noticing it's mostly blue cards here that are doing it. This whole gain control of a target creature until end of turn. Maybe I need to do a first printing that might make it bounce out a bit easier. Yeah, that's probably... Again, there's a red card I'm trying to think of, which often does. This seems to be... Oh no, there is a sorcery here. I'm just looking. It's like mainly permanents doing this. Where have I gone wrong here? Here's all your red ones. It's threaten. Word of seizing, goat napper. Act of treason was the one I was trying to think of. So what's that tagged up as then? So they've got that tagged as... Okay, so that's tagged as threaten. Gain control of permanent until end of turn. Okay, so yeah, so these... Right, so I see the difference. So yeah, so... yeah, and here in Scryfall, theft creature does mean... yeah. Supposedly permanent theft. But it does say here, look, gain control of all creatures. Target opponent controls until end of turn. Yeah, it's strange. Doesn't seem consistent, but anyway. But yeah, so in terms of the tagging, it looks like that's the difference. So with threaten, it's gain control of permanent until end of turn, whereas theft creature tag is for continuous theft, which would explain why there seemed to be more blue stuff there. Whereas here we've got more red stuff. But yeah, because what's if I do I'm surprised we haven't looked at threaten yet. It must have come up before. I mean, I would have thought act of treason I would have spoken about in an earlier episode, but maybe not. See, where When did that get reprinted? Yeah, it's mainly corsets, isn't it? I think I've been skipping over corsets. I'm just thinking back to when I did set musings. I thought I did cover certain corsets. I should check actually if I haven't been covering. I think I covered corsets where they were, you know, anyway there were 50% new cards. But I'll double check, and if I haven't, that will be another good one to do some set musings for. But I'm pretty sure I've covered these. This particular period in Magic, anyway. But what I was curious about is the whether it's being printed at common or uncommon. So you can see it went from being in Magic 2010 uncommon to Magic 2011, 12. Yeah, from that point onwards, they started printing it at common. And I remember these, you know, this, if you're drafting during this period, of which I was online, you know, you'd see it come up in draft pools. Yeah. So, moving on, Bitterblossom. Well, expensive. At some point, we're going to be looking at double masters in a set musings eventually. We've already looked at modern masters, so Bitterblossom would have come up then. But yeah, pretty key in any Faries deck where you're playing black. Deal with the devil. Let's have a look. Black enchantments that come with a major drawback that will doom you. That's great. Oh, leash effect. Yeah, let's look at this. Deal with the devil. Okay, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, we have looked at this before, but that's okay. Oh, there's leash. Yeah, okay. Oh, of course, yeah. Psychomancy. Oh, there are loads, weren't there, in the earlier sets? Yeah, so this is why we've definitely covered this. Because I would have been through some of these in set musings. And deck musings. A lot of these are done double duty. So, okay. Oh yeah, I remember Dark Tutelage from M11. Was it dark? Did I do my usual thing? No. This is where I get really muddled up. I've got this false memory of Dark Prophecy being in 10th edition. I don't know why. It's really odd. And I think I get muddled up with another card that I wouldn't say has the same artwork, but just you know, a certain vibe about it. Yeah. Yeah, so this is, on this card, Heartless Summoning, this is a sort of deal with the devil, your creatures are getting -1/-1. So yeah, basically anything that causes some, you know, permanent downside. Now, we did see, when we were looking there, if we go back, you've got, mentioned deal with, but it also mentioned leash effects, so effects which turn damage into loss of cards or permanents. So sort of variation with there, and if we do this, you'll see there's probably several cards that are actually in both lists. Leash and Oath of Limb do all spring to mind. Okay, Ancestral Vision. Oh, I'm sure we'll get to look at Iconic Masters as well at some point. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm tempted to do these sort of ones in paper, at some point. Let me know how you feel about those sort of remastered sets, but I'm tempted to do set musings in those, but I haven't really come down either way, and I may have done one already anyway, I think. But yeah, I'll have a look through, see what I've done already, and then, you know, so it'll be later on, because I've got to get through some masters set, all the various masters set musings first, and then probably things like Battle Bond, maybe, and trying to think of the other one as well that maybe I haven't covered, which are like standard sets. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to cover these sort of, what do you call them, aggregate sets in the future. I know I've done older ones, but yeah, I suppose I could do Chronicles, couldn't I? If I haven't done that already, in terms of aggregate sets. But I suppose the thing about those ones is they're more aggregates of blocks, aren't they, really, than anything. Chronicles is not really an aggregate of a block, because blocks hadn't been invented. It was just all the cards previously to solve a problem with availability. But those ones, they're actually aggregates of blocks. Right, anyway. Okay. No mana cost, suspend. Spell with no casting cost. Let's have a look at this then. Okay, so we've got a cycle of these. Oh, yeah, definitely been looking at these before. Yeah, Restore Balance, Ancestral Vision, Living End, Wheel of Fate, and then Hypergenesis. So I think I'm right in saying that these are all versions of previous cards that weren't suspend cards. So Restore Balance, that would have been Balance. Surprise, surprise. Ancestral Vision, well, that says that Ancestral Recall, isn't it? I think. Yeah. Ancestral Recall, which is worse than, not surprisingly. Living End is the one I'm always unsure of. Is that Living Death? I think it's right, isn't it? Well, and yeah, similar to All Hallows Eve. That's interesting though. It's funny because I've got a deck which I built, and I'm trying to remember if it was the paper version of an online thing. I think it was. It has this card in it, and this is quite expensive. So it's the only deck I have which has proxy. It's funny, when I originally wanted to put this in the deck, this was $100. It's now $500. Yeah, so at the time I built that deck. So yeah, it's basically what I did is I took a land and, you know, printed out and then just sticked it, the thing to the front of a land card, just because I wanted the card in there to see what it was like. But I was always looking for an alternative, and yeah, I should have looked in here, shouldn't I, as well? So we've got a Living Death. I don't know how much that is. Not too bad. Now, at the time there was a problem with that, I think. Oh no, it is from Tempest, so yeah, it would be fairly easy to get hold of. And then what was the other one? of course, this Living End. So Living End is how much? $9. So yeah. Oh, Living Death. I was in the remastered set as well. What else did we learn from this? Symmetrical. Each player has all creature cards in his or her graveyard of the game. So Eve. Yeah, I'm sure that was the card, but then again, yeah, could be fake memory. I was going to go there. I mean, it definitely would be interesting in a reanimation deck, and that deck, the two decks I'm thinking it possibly could have been in are both decks that are, you know, heavy graveyard shenanigans. So I think one of them's in fairly easy reach, but not to worry. Like it, Scion of Oona. What do we see? Oh yes, these. Indeed. Oh, I haven't looked at them yet. Good. New territory. Oh, Imperious Perfect. Right. So we have several then, yeah. So, because yeah, there was overlap, wasn't there? So from Lorwyn we have Wizensen, Mero Ridgery, which is the Merfolk one. Scion of Oona is the Faries. Mad Auntie, it's pretty mad. Is the Goblin one. This one is Elementals. Then we got Giants and Elves and Tree Folk. So yeah, okay, that's interesting because it's all from the same set, but the white and the black, there's only a single creature type, so Kiskin and Goblins, whereas the others it covers two, so blue covered Merfolk and Fairies, red was Elementals and Giants, and then green was Elves and Tree Folk, well, and Forests. You control. This one gives Shroud, it's a namesake spell, protects you, it's a lord, of which there are many. Variety of tribal anthem. Yeah. Nameless Inversion, where we had a look at this. It's that interesting flowstone effect on it, and you can use it with the removal creature toughness, so similar to Lash of Malice and Bedazzle. You can see it's on the first bit there, and Spatial Contortion, which was a colourless card, and that is 1 and colourless mana, as opposed to 1 and mana of any, so 1 mana of any colour, 1 colourless mana, as opposed to just 2 mana. So yeah, you'd have to use land specifically to generate colourless mana for that. And just for those of you who didn't see last week's episode, we went through this quite a bit actually, with these, you know, flowstone effects. And if we have this in restored order, which it is, we should hit a point. Yeah, there's the flowstones from Stronghold. You can see they had this sort of +1, -1 business going on. And so there's variations of this where you get cards like Morphling type cards where you can either do, you know, pump the power, deplete the toughness, or deplete the power, pump the toughness. And Cairn's a pretty extreme version of depleting the power and pumping the toughness. Of course, you've got to be careful, because if you're using this as a pump spell, yeah, you end up blowing up your own creature or moving your own creature. So some of these scale as well. But yeah, interesting thing to play around. Of course, we've got the Skull Clamp, which yeah, is pretty cool in like a 1/1 token deck where you're generating tokens and then you're skull clamping the token to give you card draw. Because you can use, yeah. Just trying to think on that. Cool. Oh, Pestermite. Doing the tappity tap, which we saw quite a number of sets back. We went through a whole load, I think, of several weeks where tappers and twiddling came up quite a bit. So we'll probably see here. Yeah. When were you first able to twiddle in Magic, perhaps? Oh, way back to Twiddle in blue. Twiddle and Twitch, yeah. Oh, it's coming back to me now. And you got things like Puppet Strings, which is an interesting card. Yeah, it's always cool, I think, to, you know, take a look at colourless cards in terms of, you know, the fact you can stick them in all sorts of decks, and if you're looking for some interesting utility in, you know, your EDH build, things like Staff of Domination, those sort of things. The other one I used to like, which had some interesting utility on it, and that was different thing, of course, but no, I've seen that. Yeah, Trading Post. So this sort of thing, this is an artifact. It's not twiddling anything or twitching anything, but it's yeah, some interesting utility. You can skull clamp your white goat creature token. There you go. So yeah, I mean, that's another thing, isn't it? Cards which have interesting effects when you sack other creatures, and it's finding stuff that allows you to generate tokens which are easy to blow up if you want to do that sort of thing. If you know, the way of getting rid of them is based on some sort of thing to do with the toughness. Obviously, if it's just a straight, you know, sacrifices creature, it's not a problem. But yeah, this was some interesting interactions here going on. So you could be generating goat tokens and then sacrificing them, and each one sort of builds off the last a little bit. So, you know, you can discard a card, gain 4 life, and then you can pay 1 life to create a goat token. And notice that you have to tap this to do that, so you can't stack these unless, of course, you twiddle them. Yeah, so it wasn't intended actually. It's just as a random thing, but yeah, certainly these sort of cards have interesting decks, interactions with cards that allow you to untap them, so you can, if you've got enough mana, start to do some interesting stuff. But yeah, so we generated our goat token off of our life, and then we've sacked the goat token to return an artifact creature, and then we could sacrifice that artifact creature to draw a card. Now it's a bit of a roundabout way, but yeah, it's interesting how that builds, if you like. Spellstutter Sprite. Iteration, yep, tell me about it. Counterspell, evasion, Spellstutter, there's Spellstutter there. When did that come out? Oh, it wasn't not until Wilds of Eldraine, so reverse naming there. It's not so much a creature being named on a non-creature spell, but a non-creature spell being named based on a creature spell. Anything here we haven't really looked? I don't think so. We looked at several cards over the course of this series where, you know, when something comes into play, you get to counter something. Yeah, and this is a big thing, keeps coming up again and again, which, you know, this is the sort of rabbit hole I would tend to go down with this, which is, you know, counter spells with a set mechanic stapled to it, and that's, you know, happens a lot, and it's always fascinating whenever I go through doing set musings, particularly the old version of set musings, a format I used to do, where I would go through the instants and the sorceries, and then just seeing how, you know, when you get to blue or certain key colours, how something that's common in a colour, like in blue, countering stuff, how that integrates with set mechanics or themes of the set. And it's always fascinating to look at that. And then the other cool thing is where you get counter spells on multicoloured, you know, charms and those sort of things as well. So it gives you good, nice flexibility if you're, you know, happen to be playing in those three colours. And then, you know, where it crops up on, say, a modal spell, or it's been colour shifted. Oh, speaking of modal spells, one of my favourites, the cryptics, or the commands, should I say, the cryptics, the commands, which, yeah, has counterspell on it. And yeah, these, which have, as you can see, been reprinted at least once, but yeah, in their original form. Here we go. And then if you do look at that, see, you can see like how that's now presented in the newer ones, so much sort of cleaner. This one, yeah, obviously around the time of Commander 2013, they'd opted not to go down that avenue. I don't know if that was reprinted again, its original. Yeah, so Commander 2011. So here, Iconic Masters, they had this one crop up in the Amonkhet Invocations. And that's another little thing that's fun to look at over time is, you know, this sort of rules text area. How that particular layout changes on certain cards over time. And that other thing as well, when you get stuff that's so chock full of text, like whether there's enough room to include reminder text or not. So here obviously they felt that they had to just have some reminder text there about fear. I don't think there's anything else here that's got keywords in it where that would require that possibility or that need to do that. Mistbind Clique. Banished creature. Okay, we'll have a look at that. So that, yeah, that's where it goes and then comes back. Leaves battlefield trigger, evasion, tap a land, unique CR reference. Let's just look at this banished creature. I imagine it's cropped up what's 80 times in Magic, going back to Portcullis. Whenever any creature comes into play, if there are 2 or more other creatures in play, set that creature aside. If Portcullis leaves play, put the creature into play under its owner's control. It's an interesting control spell. Ooh, Tornos Coffin. Hang on, let's have a look. Oh, doesn't look like we've been down a banish rabbit hole. Because auto suggest or auto complete hasn't come up. That's better. I had a feeling Oubliette was before then. So yeah, select a creature in play when Oubliette is cast. That creature is considered out of play as long as Oubliette is in play. Hence the creature cannot be the target spells and cannot receive damage, use special powers, attack or defend. Well, it was early days of Magic. All counters and enchantments on the creature remain but are out of play. Also out of play. If Oubliette is removed, creature returns to play tapped. So what would that look like? So when did they get rid of all the other rubbish? Oh, looks like Double Masters maybe. They sort of cleaned it up a bit for the... So this would be the online version when they released it online as part of Masters Edition. There you can see it is actually referencing aura cards, and you know, aura cards weren't around in at the time of Arabian Nights. You know, that particular type of enchantment. Yeah, it gets a lot cleaner with later on. So when Oubliette enters the battlefield, target creature phases out. So they use phase out there till Oubliette leaves the battlefield. Tap the creature as it phases in this way. Yep, so they're doing it using phasing. What did they do with Portcullis? Yep, so that's just straight. Goes out to the... is exiled, then comes back. I see prison. Yeah, again, fascinating one to look at once you go down this sort of banish rabbit hole. Like, how is that being handled? Either in... what do you call that? Oh God, I'm trying to think of the term now. Yeah, errated, or when there's a reprint, or maybe when there's a functional reprint or a card that does a similar thing that isn't a functional reprint, like how that is handled. But yeah, things like, obviously, you know, Journey to Nowhere, Banisher Priest, Fiend Hunter, you know, all do similar sort of things, but this one is just basically doing it to your own creature that you've happened to use to champion. You can see it was champion an elf, champion an elemental. I don't see a particular cycle here. How widespread then was that champion? I wonder. Okay. Oh. Champion. bit more specific. Yeah. That's more like it, because champion's a fairly common name, I suppose. Ooh. Oh yeah, of course they would have Tempestuary Mask. Oh, champion attacks. Think, what's that doing there? Okay, yeah. So we got some other stuff here which isn't necessarily that. Let's just try this. Is first printing. Yep, so we'll ignore Soltari champion. I suppose if I want to get clever, we do that. There we go. Yeah, so mostly Lorwyn, I think, yeah. So 2 in white, 2 in blue, 1 in black, a red one, green one, and then there's a couple in Morningtide. So what we've got, that one just does again, so any creature, okay. That's Kiskin, yeah, fairies, merfolk, goblins, yeah, so stuff we've seen before. Red one was also just creature, green one was creature as well, and then the ones in Morningtide were goblins or shaman and tree folk or warrior. Okay. Familiar's Ruse, another counter spell here with an additional cost. So it's got rescue creature on it because you're bouncing back to your hand. So, you know, there's several fairies there which had ETBs on them. That might be useful with this sort of interaction. So yeah. And there's quite a number of cards in Magic that allow you to bounce creatures back to your hand. Either because they specifically say your hand or just, back to the owner's hand. Okay. We're definitely now getting into, we're well into sideboard territory. Razormane Masticore. Reprinted from 5th Dawn. Looks very much a 5th Dawn creature, doesn't it? You can imagine trying to cheat that out with affinity. It did have an erratum on it. Discard outlet, drawback. There is an upkeep cost, but yeah, you have to discard a card there. Beginning of upkeep, sacrifice. Must go unless you discard a card. And the 3 damage to target creature is a May, so it's not as if, oh god, I've got 3 damage here, I need to be blowing something up, or bolting something. Right, removal, creature burn, drawback. So yeah, with that, that's your upkeep. And of course upkeep is all over Magic, but I've always tended to associate it with earlier sets where it was, certain sets it was quite widespread. This cumulative upkeep thing from Ice Age, and of course we saw that turn up recently because of the whole cold snap thing. But yeah, there's a lot of it in, as you can see, a lot of it in Ice Age. But there's some, I think there's some interesting stuff. Ice Age is an interesting set to poke around in, find some long forgotten cards. Another set, Alliances crops up in Tempest. I suppose it gets scaled back a little bit there was a few of these cards in Weatherlight. And then, you know, a few here and there in various sets. And there we go. Reappeared in Cold Snap because of the association with the old Ice Age block, so there's quite a number there. And then we've got it cropping up here and there in the Time Spiral block, and then a little bit in Shards and so on. So you sort of get the idea. I don't think we saw it, yeah, so it's sort of very much, to me, looks, you know, old set, the sort of thing that you would see in pre-modern sets, the one exception being, you know, a lot of it in Cold Snap. Apart from that, just scattered around in the more modern sets. Oh, Thoughtseize. Sideboard card, yeah. So opponents rule their hand, you choose a card for them to discard. And we looked at this previously because we'd spoken about cards that do this in previous episodes. But yeah, lots of different ways of, or several different ways of getting an opponent to discard cards. You know, they choose is one way, you choose is another, and a random choice is another. Deathmark, so yeah, I do recognise this from 10th edition, mainly got reprinted in other core sets with slightly different artwork, but this is the 10th edition one, is also the Cold Snap artwork. Yep, destroying target green or white creature. Now, yeah, there was some, so later on, so if you look, this is, let's go in here and do this. So if I do set CSP, yep, so you can see there's the cycle of enemy hate in Cold Snap. Now, if we go through this, you can see that they, you know, tweaked. So that card turns up in different cycles, different enemy hate cycles. So you've got the Cold Snap one. Interestingly enough, if you go by this, not 10th edition, not the former cycle in 10th edition, but yeah, in M10, you know, slightly different tweak in there, slightly different group that it's appearing. Same with M11, and then Modern Masters 2. You can see slightly different makeup of a slightly different set of cards. And then finally, Bottle Gnomes. So, was in Mirrodin. Yeah, goes way back to Tempest. And yeah, and we've looked at martyr effects quite a lot here. So these are creatures that sacrifice themselves for a benefit. So again, fits in here. We've seen a number of cards here, if we're going down various rabbit holes, which have a home in some sort of, you know, graveyard based deck. And this is another one where, you know, if you're looking for sack outlets where you get some sort of benefit, then yeah. And martyr effects are a good place for that. You know, if you're looking for something to go into your deck, where you're needing to sack stuff, but you want there to be some benefit through doing that, then definitely looking at stuff tagged up in Martyr in Scryfall's are often a good starting point if you've run out of ideas. And of course life gains all over magic. I mean, yeah. And of course you can put it to good use apart from just, you know, a not die deck. So obviously useful in decks where you're using life as fuel, and decks like this where, you know, the cards in your deck are putting you on a clock, and that clock's based on has a relationship to your life, because they're, you know, cards in here doing you damage. So it's nice when you've got cards, albeit in the sideboard in this case, that can sort of get you out of sticky situations. Obviously that you're more likely to put that in a deck you're going out where it becomes apparent that the matchup is going to leave you playing a longer game, so that, you know, you're going to have some issues in that scenario with cards like Bitterblossom, and what else was it? There's another card here that did damage to you, I think. That had a... Where did I see it? I mean, there were some here that were, I think, taking away stuff, but yeah, can't remember it now. Oh, yeah, Thoughtseize. I mean, if you happen to mainboard Thoughtseize, I suppose. But yeah, the other one was the Bitterblossom. Okay, there we have it. Hopefully you enjoyed that. It's interesting to look through and see, you know, cards from that era. Certainly an interesting tournament. Yeah, this Grand Prix, well worth taking a look at. Just because for the decks of that time. I'd be curious to what else got played beyond the top 8. It's not always easy to find with Grand Prix. Often it's a bit easier with some other stuff like, you know, the Pro Tour events and the World Championship. But yeah, it's you know, I find it's fascinating to riff around, you know, tournament decks for a particular tournament. You know, not just for nostalgia. I mean, that's really how this series started, was me thinking, yeah, wouldn't it be fun to go through historically and look at some old tournament decks, and just, you know, see what sort of cards are in there and how those sort of cards have changed over time, and hence the Deck Musings series was born. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.